wait, how does this work?
Okay, I'm pretty sure.
Gotcha.
Yes.
Now you talked a little bit about how you ask people for how they feel about you, and how are you going to actively like change those behaviors that you talked about a little bit in your speech?
Right. This last week was a lot of reflection, a lot of finding resolve for myself and how I can be a better leader. So last week, I talked about being a warrior and being action-oriented. That wasn't Raven 1.0, and this speech isn't Raven 2.0. All of those things embody me, and I'm just picking ways for me to grow as myself, because I come to realize that, last week I talked about why this org has made such an impact on me. I came in as a freshman, I didn't know myself, I didn't know what things I can do, and I didn't know what kind of involvement being in Troy Phi has done so much for me. And I've come to realize that it's because of those mentorship figures, those guidance, from Eddie to Heidi to Garci, Tante, Rachel, Joseph, and all of those people are what made me who I am today, and that's why I'm standing in front of you guys. And so how I want to actively change my personality, how I want to actively combine my strengths as a warrior and now learn how to be a healer and to be a servant leader, it's something I'm working on, because that's my responsibility to do so, because it's my time to take those tools and resources I've learned and share that with the rest of everyone.
So I'm going to pose the same question.
Sure.
So as the GM, we are often unaware of the behind-the-scenes actions of Troy Phi and the e-board.
Right.
And all we get the perception from is how e-boarders interact with us as GMs. And sometimes e-board can feel very exclusive to us GMs, especially when we feel like we're just bystanders of the club instead of active participants of the family. And strong leaders like Joseph and Rachel use not only leadership, but a compassion and a genuine care for the general members who may have felt left out of Troy Club. So how have you impacted us, the GMs who may have felt left out, in creating that family with each and every one of us?
Right. The last 2 years, I don't know if you see me, but it's always been my personal mission. When someone comes in that room, they're new, they're on their phone, they feel out of place, they feel awkward. It's my personal mission to approach them, start that conversation, get to know who they are, get to know where they come from, and introduce them to everyone else. Small things like that are how I can feel that board can bridge that kapwa with the GMs. I have some ideas too for the future. For one, making that tone, setting the tone that, hey, it's as board members, it's your responsibility to not only just stay within the people you're comfortable with, but to reach out to those people who feel marginalized, who feel neglected, who don't feel validated to be a part of this club. And that's kind of why I talk about the compliment box, because it does so much thing. We need to diversify our PR, because unfortunately, you see the same types of people in our media, and a lot of the reasons why people don't come back is because they don't feel like they're a part of that family, because they're not validated and they're not seen. And so that's why I want to feature members here who don't come out. I want to show that, there's more to your lines. There's a bigger family, right? Thank you.
You saw the question, Aaron?
So last week you spoke about how that you wanted to be president since the beginning. And I think that's great that you've had that goal in mind, and that everything that you've done for Troy Phi has been with that goal. But sometimes it's not always about how long you've wanted something, it's about if you've done the work to prove that you are fit for that role. I was wondering if you could talk about some examples about this year that would lend to your credibility in becoming president for next year.
Sure. I think what a lot of the things I've done this year come in the small details, right? I've always tried to use my passion to try to find ways that the club can connect to the community, talking about that kapwa. So some of the things I've done this year, for example, when LACC wanted to tour USC, I took the initiative to go ahead and do that. When SMC wanted to start a Filipino club, I went out there and helped them. I went to all their first GMs and kind of helped them hit the ground running. I wanted to use my platform as someone who was a community and culture chair, who's learned from all these different cultural spaces, community spaces, and my EVP, externalizing with the community, to make that mentorship program to empower the next generation of high school leaders. So those are just some examples how, I've taken the small steps to prove that I can get the work done. And besides, all the things I've done on board as well, from, PAM programming, hi-fi tour, those are the things I said last week, but I don't want to touch on those anymore because you've heard of that. But what I'm here today to tell you about is, yes, I've proven that I can do the work. Now I want to prove to you that it's time for me to take a step back, and it's time for me to be keen on letting others grow and act more of like a coaching figure. So not just being the player, not just, you know, getting the work done, not just being a cheerleader and saying, hey, you can do it, providing that support, but also being that coach, providing the tools and resources I've gotten and giving those back to the people who need it.
Last question.
Ben,
Um,
well, Ben raises. When Diane-
So basically last week and this week, you talk about a lot of your accomplishments. But as an e-board and as president, your role is to support everyone else's roles. And you talk about how you have goals and you achieve them. But I want to ask, as president, how would you reach out to GMs or other e-boards and find their goals and help them achieve that?
Right. Okay. So let's start with board, for example. What I've talked about with the one-on-ones, I want to pair the more seasoned veterans of Troy Pi e-board members and match them with the newer members. I think that way we can solve a lot of intricacies in the way our communication works and how we can, you know, develop that support system. So I want to personally always, like, monthly reach out to my e-board members, some GMs, to ask, you know, what can we do better and how can we provide the support that you need to grow. So that's one. Two, I think, so asking for support for board and GMs, right? And especially supporting that camaraderie is just shining light on visibility that there are members here who don't feel like, you know, they're part of that family, and making a strong effort and setting that tone with the board to ensure that they also feel welcome off the get-go.
Thank you.
Let's give it up for